DeForest Pizza is one of the most iconic pizzerias in America. A legacy started by Dom DeMarco in 1965 has drawn the attention of foodies all across the world. Critics call DeForest the holy grail of New York-style pizza. DeForest Pizza was called one of the most acclaimed and sought-after pizza shops in New York City by the New York Times, one of the best pizza places in the U.S. by Food and Wine. DeForest Pizza is credited for seeking out the best quality ingredients, and it has always been their motto.
My name is Margaret Mieles, and I am daughter and manager of DeForest Pizzeria in Brooklyn, New York. My father, Domenico, started this pizzeria in 1965, and we set the trend for American pizza. He immigrated from Caserta, Italy in 1959, and he started off as a farmer in Huntington, New York. So my dad has been making pizza for over 55 years, and he had built a brand at the original location. It wasn't what he expected to do. I'm one of 7 children. I have 5 brothers and 1 sister. And so my dad's goal was really to take care of the family, and he just loved what he did. Therefore, that experience and that exceptional passion and the right ingredients, of course, led to us becoming a brand, a world-known business. People come here from all over the world for many years now, and I think it's more than just, obviously it's we do not compromise the quality. No matter what the cost of the food goes up, the cost of payroll, we've never compromised the quality. But I think most importantly, we make them feel like family. They always ask me, do you ever get tired of hearing the best pizza in New York? And my answer will always be the same thing. It's what motivates me every single day to keep this going along with my siblings and to keep my dad's legacy.
Now, what kind of menu items do you have here? Do you stay with the basics?
Yeah, well, we try to stay with the basics, but they usually, customers love it, like the pepperoni, sausages, mushroom. I try to have them have the basic pizza, because this is their first time trying it. You want to make sure they have the full effect with no toppings. Right. But they insist on having toppings.
Now, I noticed you cut the cheese to order. Why do you do that?
Well, this way, when it melts, the flavor is still in there. The chunks melt, the flavor of the cheese is still in there.
Okay.
You know, because a lot of people shred their cheese, and it's in the oven too long, there's no more flavor.
Right.
So this way, when it's done, the flavor is still in there. And now, one more time of sauce, just to make that extra taste on there. And it's perfect. And this one, about 15 minutes, it'll be done.
Besides a cracker-thin crust topped with a zingy tomato sauce, DeForest Pizza guarantees you one other experience: a long wait.
Yeah, my name is Domenico DeMarco. I make a good pie. I don't let nobody do.
How was it different in the 60s? Like when you came here in the 60s, have you changed anything, or have you basically left it the same?
I left the same, yeah. There's no reason to change.
Pizza is the world's favorite fast food. We eat it everywhere, at home, in restaurants, on street corners. Some 3 billion pizzas are sold each year in the United States alone, on an average of 46 slices per person. But the story of how the humble pizza came to enjoy such global dominance reveals much about the history of migration, economics, and the flavor of food. Pizza is just one of those things. Today's pizzas are far removed from those of the Lazzaroni days, and many pizza purists, especially in Naples, balk at some of the more outlandish toppings that are now offered in America. But America has grown to be the staple country and the forefront to creativity when it comes to making pizzas. Pizza is still recognizably the best fast food in every slice.
What makes everyone come here and taste this lovely pizza? Is it your personality?
It's Well, I use the top quality. It might be my personality. I don't know.
So top ingredients, right?
Top ingredient, yeah.
And you're from
It doesn't matter about this. I never rush. Each pie I make sure.
You make sure, right? And you close from 3:30 to 6:30 just to get ready.
Yeah.
Nobody rushes you.
No.
And you're from Naples, right? And I hear that's where the best pizza is in the whole world.
Yeah. But you know, that's funny. The people that come from over there, when they eat this pizza, they say this one's better than the other.
Whether it's Thanksgiving or Christmas, it doesn't matter. Dom is open. It could be Easter. It could be his wedding anniversary. He's there 7 days a week.
My question is, if you don't like what you do, no do.
That's right. If you don't like what you do, don't do it. And he loves what he does.
If you're ever in New York, you should come to DeFara, located in 1424 Avenue J in Midwood, Brooklyn. And you can find out what all the people are talking about and the celebrities too.
Lois Ellen Frank and Walter Whitewater have been at the forefront of Native American cuisine. They have been educating the world on their knowledge and passion for farm to table in America.
So for me, one of the things that is really important is to be an example for the younger generation. When I can show them my passion and my respect and the honoring of the land and the plants and the foods that I use, it sets an example. And, you know, it used to be that if you cooked something and it wasn't cooked properly, you would just toss it and do it again. But I think it's about understanding that everything takes time to grow or to produce life. And we need to be able to be an example for future generations. I'm a big proponent of farm to table. I'm a big proponent of sustainability. What does sustainability mean? And what does that mean in terms of food justice and food sovereignty and environmental justice? These things are all created and all connected. There is no separating out one component from another. And so when I think about Native American cuisine, and I think about the cuisine that I do, it's about the foods of the ancestors. And in some instances, those foods, some of the information's been forgotten.
My way of looking at passion, of looking at the food is I want to make my food look beautiful. Not only that, I want to make it taste yummy and make it taste good. It has a flavor into it, you know. That's the way I always wanted to represent my native food, and not only just to eat it, I wanted to make that plate look beautiful.
I know how the plants are treated and how they're planted and the care that the farms have for the food that I use. And that's important to me. It's one of my passions because I have in my own house an edible landscape, and that landscape is filled with foods like chokecherries and edible marigolds and herbs. And I do something called acceptance gardening. And the acceptance gardening is allowing nature to do what it does best and then accept that and just help it along. So the yuccas and the wild spinaches and the purslane and the wild currants and the chokecherries, all of this is my passion. And I think one of the things that is very important to me is to surround myself with people that have the same respect and the same values for the land and for the food. And as a chef, That's really important. That's one of my biggest passions, is to take all of these ingredients, and then once I get the food, I'm able to serve it.
Lois Ellen Frank won a 2003 James Beard Foundation Award for her cookbook, Foods of the Southwest Indian Nations, the first cookbook of Native American cuisine so honored.
I, was told that I would never be an executive chef or a chef owner. And that's a difficult thing to hear early in your career. But I have this wonderful catering company in Santa Fe, New Mexico called Red Mesa Cuisine. And I am the chef owner, and I am doing things. And so whatever difficulties were no longer exist. And that's important. It's important to follow your dream and not give up. And that was one of the things that my mom always instilled in me growing up. You could do whatever you want. Just set your mind to it. It's like calling in the spirits, and they come and they help you. And that's a big part. And perseverance, not giving up, staying with something, having an idea and a passion and following it. And it takes years.
These are just a baby tumbleweed without start having the thorns on it. And this is a purslane that grows wild outside. Has a lot of protein in it. So I'm going to use that, combine it two together, and then have it chopped.
When I think about this question about if I could do it all over again, what would I do differently? It's interesting because if I did something differently, then I wouldn't be who I am. Every experience, every mistake, every thing that I've ever done in my life has been a stone or a pathway to where I am now. And so I feel really honored and blessed for the mistakes and the choices that I've made, because who I am is a cumulative of all that I've done. And I wouldn't be who I am. I wouldn't be the chef who I am. I wouldn't be the woman who I am. I wouldn't be the person that I am if I hadn't had each and every experience. And so there's nothing I would do over. There's nothing I would redo, because what makes me who I am is the culmination of all the experiences in my life, in every kitchen, in every person I've cooked with, and every influence, every hero, everything I've ever done, every meal I've ever created is a part now of who I am.
Picture, I never went to school for everything I did. It's just self-taught. And the struggle that I went, and there's always going to be a struggle somewhere. No matter what so many times you did, whatever it is you do, there's always going to be a struggle.
Native American cuisine is the most misunderstood and unrepresented cuisine in the United States. Native American cuisine includes indigenous and wild plant and animal ingredients, but it also includes the cultivated plant ingredient found in various tribes throughout the Americas.
As a Native person, there's always a gathering, especially when there's a drum or something, singing going on, There's always a gathering, For me, being here in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and there's other tribe comes around, they gather, and I was told there was going to be a gathering this evening, because I always want to go there. I wanted to meet people, and who's there. So sure enough, after work, I went there. And when I found a place and then I went in, they were like, sure enough, guess what? There's all these natives were sitting there. Who knows what tribe they are? And they were singing. Then it was my turn. Hey, sit down. Here's the gourd here. Sing some song. And I was like, oh my gosh, I better be careful what I sing here, because I might pronounce it wrong, or maybe you're not supposed to sing those songs this time of the month or the year. So I have to be careful, you know. I said, well, all I know is I've been hearing this song back home, and my late uncle used to sing it, you know, especially towards morning, you know, sing that song. And I'm going to sing that song. And I said, well, I think I'll be okay with it. And then the drum, they start beating that drum, took off. And I started shaking my cord and started singing. And then the song was I know it was a fried bread song. Maybe I do a little clip of that song. And it goes, I sing those songs in that type of a cattle song. And when I got done singing my fourth song, and this elder like started to laugh. He was laughing away. I said, come over here, sit by me, nephew, sit by me. Did you know you just sung a fried bread song?
One thing that if I were to say something to the whole world and to all the people on this planet, it would be to appreciate all of the bounty that the plants and animals have provided for us. That I would ask each and every one of you to cook with love and care and compassion, and to honor and respect every ingredient that you touch and every meal that you create, and to really take a look at the elders in all of our traditions. You know, we're all indigenous people on this planet. Everyone comes from somewhere. And so it would be to get in touch with that indigeneity, that wisdom of who you are.
Hey guys, you with the film crew here this morning?
Yeah.
Oh, you got here early.
Yeah, we did.
Are we rolling?
Yeah, is that a problem?
No. You're jumping from the start. Then you got to see a little bit of my moves now, you know? Just another day.
Joe Ciminera is the man who pioneered TV cooking shows in America. He's produced some of the biggest names in the industry with over 10,500 hours of cooking show credits to his name.
All right, good. So let's just go right into it. So what you're going to see here is the actual kitchen studios. Now we got 2 kitchen studios set up. Sometimes we're jamming. We're doing one cooking show on one side, one cooking show on the other side. Sometimes we're just prepping it out. But we have the staff here now, which is getting ready for a popular cooking show that we do. They're coming down for 13 episodes. So we're going to get started. Probably going to do 2 episodes today. So why don't we come inside? Let me show you a little bit of a tour real quick, and then we can get whatever you need to get. So this is some of the action that's going on here today. We're getting ready to do some cooking show stuff. All about the food, all about the flavors. Hey guys, what's up? Hey, Chef. How are you? Ça va bien?
Ça va.
And this is another kitchen we use here in the back. Sometimes this is more like a prep kitchen before the actual host of the show goes up on camera there. So sometimes their team will prep all the stuff here and then just kind of go to the back for it. And sometimes we're actually filming in 2 different kitchens, and there's anywhere between 20 and 30 people here at a time. But yeah, let me put this down. Let's grab something to drink and let's do the interview.
Sounds good.
All right, cool.
Action.
Well, if you talk about my journey and how it started, well, I started off as a chef, and an eccentric chef at that. I was obsessed with making sure that we were the best with anything we were doing, creative-wise, innovative-wise. I was very fortunate to get my first New York Times 3-star review back in my early 20s, and that basically launched my career. It had the attention of Julia Child, and her people invited me on one of her shows. And from there was my first taste of the TV cooking show world, and I thought to myself, this is something I could see myself doing. The camera people that were on set were like, hey, you got a great personality, you should keep it up, that type of thing. So that kind of motivated me to be interested to moving into the TV cooking show world. So through all the years, now to my later 20s, I developed some really small shows on like public access and stuff like that. Started having them locally, got a taste of cooking shows in general, and then I said to myself, you know what, I really like what I'm doing here. So I started to make friends in that whole PBS circle with Julia. There was another guy that had a famous show, Dish It Up Italian Style. So all those PBS shows I sort of were involved with, and used to talk to these people on a daily basis. I was the executive chef at a very exclusive hotel, Gurney's Inn, which was in Montauk, back in my late 20s, and I invited all those PBS bigwigs to sort of come down and to a tasting. So it was a beautiful 7-course tasting that took me the whole week to plan. And make a long story short, at the end of the night, we have everybody sitting at the table, Julia, Jacques, everybody, all those PBS bigwigs, and they come out, they invite the chef out to the table, they're clapping their hands, they're like, Chef, this is great, they're giving me hugs and kisses, and that lasted for about 5 minutes, and Gurney's Inn had this long hallway going back to the kitchen from the master dining table. Nick Monty was the owner at that time. He had incredible vision on everything that he put together in that place. And I'm walking back to the kitchen, and I'm looking in back of myself, and I'm saying, I'm looking at the table, looking back, and I'm saying, you know what? I think I want to be on the other side of this. I don't want to be the guy who's cooking for these incredibly known people who have a brand, that have built the brand coming through. I want to be the other guy on the side of that fence. I want to be that person who's sitting at that table. So I vowed just before I went into that kitchen to go back sweating like a pig, working 14, 16 hours a day, 7 days a week. I said, I want something better. I'm going to build a brand. And that's what I did. I looked back and I said, you know what, there's going to be a change in my life, and then from there I was serious about cooking shows. I got a phone call, this is about another year later, I got a phone call from Joe, who had a popular PBS show, and he said, you know what, we're looking to do 5 new shows, we're working with Julia, we're going to start our own distribution channel, we want you to be one of these creative cooking shows. Okay, so I said, yeah, I'll do it. What do I have to do? They said, well, you have to make a pilot. Now here I am, a chef, I don't know anything about this business. They said, all right, I need to make a pilot. What's that? They said, go find a film crew, go make a half-hour show, and then send the show back to us. So I said, look, I don't really know anything about this. He's like, well, tell you what, we'll be on the set that day to give you some pointers to make sure that it comes out good. So I filmed the pilot in Arthur Avenue in the Bronx. All the PBS bigwigs were there watching me. At the end of the show, I walked over to Joe and I said, how did they like it? What did they think? And they said, Joe, he put his hand over my shoulder and he says, we're going to tell the naked chef to put his clothes back on. And that was it. Took that pilot, we delivered it to PBS, we got a 13-episode deal, and then at that point, that launched what was called Taste This TV, which lasted about 10 years on PBS. I had an incredible run, 804 episodes later. When you talk about setting a trend, let's just take TV cooking shows in general. To date, there's been no one that has produced more cooking shows than me. I mean, we stopped counting. I had an intern count a couple of years ago. We were at like 10,005 hours of programming. I mean, just a ridiculous amount. Any cooking show that's pretty much been filmed has usually gone through a Joe Seminary production. And that's because we do things different. We set the bar. I mean, I launched networks. Networks opened up and they said they needed 100 hours of cooking show content. We were able to give them 100 hours of cooking show. The license ran out. We took away the cooking shows. I've seen networks go under. It's all about the content. Content is king. And then we have the birth of YouTube. And where I think that I've helped America with how they watch TV cooking shows is I made the everyday cook that couldn't get on a major platform, couldn't get on a major network, but they're so gifted, talented. I mean, really talented chefs that are out there that are unknown. Their brand is unknown, nobody knows about them, but they make the best sauce. They make the best dessert. Those are the kind of chefs that have come to me over the years, and I've been able to take their brand, and introduce it to the American public. Joe has produced and coached some of America's most popular cooking show hosts. It's a great time for people to roll out and do cooking shows. It's not like years ago where you had to find filmmakers out there that you had to hire and pay tens of hundreds of thousands of dollars. I mean, when I had my first chance to be on film, I had to hire a real production company outside of New York City. I remember taking $70,000 out of my house. That's what it cost. I took a line of credit out of my house. My wife's hands were shaking. She said, you think this is going to work? And I said, it's going to work because it has to work. When you're committed to doing something and you're motivated to do it, I had tunnel vision right to the finish line.
Action.
So I produced 13 episodes. I had nowhere to bring them. I mean, I had a contact at a PBS distribution company. So I said, you know what, let me try to send my shows there. I sent 13 episodes to PBS. They loved the shows, but they said that the format was all wrong. Some editing needed to be changed. It was another $30,000 later that I had to make changes. I thought I was going to die at that point, but I did it. Borrowed another $30,000. Now I'm in it for over $100,000. And I took my first 13 episodes, and I was able to make it happen. It hit the airway, and it did very, very well. Thank God. God is a big contributor to my success, and it worked out really good for me. The 13 episodes at that point recircled. They went on the air. I probably did another, 21 seasons for PBS at that time. The Taste TV brand was built being one of the longest independent cooking shows on PBS. When you're filming cooking shows, obviously the equipment is good, but there's a couple of other really important things, like a director has to have the ability to really bring out the best in a particular host. And that's a secret, that's an art. I think that's something that can be learned, but a lot of that is almost like a born knack. You need to be able to spot talent and be able to match them up. Don't expect talent to do something or be something different than they're not, because that just shows incredibly wrong on the camera. So I think there's a really creative way of bringing out a person's personality so that they feel really warm and fuzzy into the camera. And even some of the most shyest chefs and foodies that I work with a little bit of direction, they popped. They became really next level cooking show hosts. And at the end of the day, you might say that the food is the most important thing for a cooking show, but I'm going to tell you that the number one thing that you're going to need for a cooking show is personality first and foremost. Joe has produced and coached some of America's most popular cooking show hosts. Okay, so that's a good question. What is Joe Ciminero working on? Well, there's a lot of things when you talk about what the future of cooking shows are going. I, for one, think that there's going to be something hologram-driven, where there will be a 3D dimensional cooking show so that you'll be able to walk around, and I said it first, you'll be able to walk around wherever that platform is, and you'll be able to see 360 degrees of the food, so it won't be any more of a flat looking cooking show, but it'll be more of a 3D image that you can watch and rotate at any point. You can see, and that's something that we've played around with too. We just can't get a couple of things right. But the whole 360-degree angle for a cooking show is going to be the future of cooking. Joe and his team have been working on developing a hologram cooking show since 2013. Their goal is to bring it to homes by 2025. About the third year into it, I started to notice something in the industry. Chefs started to ask me, hey Joe, how can I get my own cooking show? How can I, hire a crew to do this? And there really wasn't any TV production companies out there. So at that time, I bought a bunch of equipment. I saw a niche in the market. I saw a need for a filming crew that specialized in food. And I remember delivering a show to PBS at that time where the camera angles went right close up on the food. Now keep in mind, the traditional, and you'll see it back there too, there's that mirror we still have. That was the traditional way of shooting cooking shows. They had an overhead camera there, right? And then I took the approach to go right into the food, blurry, and then really rack focus quick. Nobody was doing anything like that years ago. It didn't exist. So I brought it to PBS, they looked at the show and they said, "What is this?" And I said, "Well, look, this is a really different way of shooting a cooking show, and I think it's better because it really gives the person the ability to look into that camera and say, wow, that food looks good. I mean, super close angles." No. That's not the traditional way of shooting a cooking show. You know better than that. You need the overhead camera, you need the front camera. Everything was so traditional. And, this should be a lesson in life, too, because when you talk about people who try things different and the rest of the world doesn't see it your way, many people quit at that point. And I didn't, and I lost a lot by not listening to people at that time. I still kept with my style of really close shots coming in. About a year and a half later, the same PBS station put the show on prime time with those exact cutaways and those faces. It set a trend for how cooking shows were shot. So they went from a very different approach, very old school overhead camera, very boring, to now zam in your face, super macro lenses, just right up in the food, showing the sizzle of the beef. And we started that trend. And from there, other different networks took it on, and then they changed how cooking shows were filmed. Some cooking shows were shot, on a GoPro. The GoPro was just like, hooked on stuff. I made a pendulum, a homemade pendulum. The camera swung and stopped right on the plate to focus in. So I was creating equipment back years ago to get to the next cutting edge of cooking shows. Joe has been working extensively with engineers who custom make his lenses for all of his cameras. I'm Joe Simonera, and I set the trend for cooking shows in America. The history of American wine began when the first Europeans explored parts of North America, which they called Vinland because of the profusion of grapes found there. However, Americans today are educated by one man as he's helped foodies pair wine with different foods. His name is David Rosengarten.
Hey, I'm David Rosengarten. I write about wine and food, but I really write about wine and food. When I started doing this many years ago, we had people who wrote about food and people who wrote about wine. People who cared about food and people who cared about wine. I came along and said, hey, what's wrong with both of them together? And I don't know, maybe I started a trend. I started to really focus on what to pour with what you're eating. I like to propose a couple of basic rules that you can follow that will make your wine and food taste very good together.
David Rosengarten was one of the very early pioneers for educating Americans on pairing food and wine. He has filmed several hundreds of shows on the Food Network, educating consumers on the importance of eating food with wine.
So I grew up in a household that was nuts about food, mostly because of my dad. My dad worked hard during the week in the New York garment industry, but on the weekend, man, we cooked food, we went to restaurants, and of course I developed a love for it. When I first got away from the family nest, which was college, I was in a small town in upstate New York, and the Bluebird Diner was the only place you could eat. I couldn't get any Szechuan food or Indian food. So out of desperation, I started to cook. And I discovered, wow, I can really do this pretty well. And within a few years, I started to write about it and create recipes and finally write cookbooks. And I guess the turning point in my career, my life even, was the beginning of the Food Network in the early 90s. I was in the right place at the right time, and I was asked to do the first show on the Food Network. Wow, that was big. And then, you know, more people knew me and life changed. Life was good. So on the Food Network, I did altogether about 500 cooking shows. I did a lot of other kinds of shows also, but the cooking shows. At the end of every show, you know, during the show, I explain the ingredients in the dish and cook the dish. But at the end of the show, I sat down at the table with a bottle of wine, maybe several bottles of wine, and the food that I had cooked. And I started to explain why I'm drinking this wine with this food. And, you know, it was very personal. A lot of people said to me, we really like the early part of the show where you're talking and teaching.
David was the co-anchor of In Food Today with Donna Hanover and the host of Taste, a cooking show devoted to teaching the principles of good taste in food and wine.
Now, through the years, I've known so many great people in food and wine, and people who are well known, like Julia. Julia was wonderful. Always a straight shooter, a loose cannon, always said what was on her mind. And one of my favorite Julia lines was, I showed up at her house in near Boston one day to do a tasting with her, and I was with my wife and a daughter who was 3 months old, and the daughter was in my wife's arms. Knock, knock, knock. Julia opens the door, looks at the baby and goes, "Oh, is she gonna need milk or is she on the home dairy?" It's just like perfect Julia. And it was interesting because at that time, let's say the 70s and the 80s, Americans tended to be either food people or wine people, and they didn't get it together till later. Now, when you talk to people who are interested in things gastronomic, they usually know about both food and wine, which is great because wine goes with food. Wine is for food, but it wasn't that way before.
David is the editor-in-chief of the Rosengarten Report, a James Beard Award-winning newsletter. He's also the author of several cookbooks, including It's All American Food, which won a James Beard Award for Best American Cookbook.
So, I suppose the thing that's always been most important to me is that people enjoy wine and food together. They're meant to be together. It's historical. It goes back hundreds of years. Food is better with wine. Wine is better with food. And people don't always get that, but I think that's a really important thing. And along the same lines, I almost want to correct myself for being too serious about this. That's the other really important thing. You got to remember, this is all for fun. This is all for pleasure. It's not super serious. You don't have to study a million books and talk like an idiot, you know, like a knowledgeable idiot with other people. Yeah, that's good. Hey, could you pass the Rioja? Whatever. It's for fun. Wine is for fun. Well, you know, if I have a legacy, I guess it would be, you know, the exploration of wine and food together. And again, I don't want that to be taken as something way too serious. But I think all you got to do is, like, keep your mind open. Keep your mouth open, that helps also. But keep your mind open when you're eating. You know, sometimes you'll taste something, and like if you gave me one of these mussels that I had a moment ago, and I taste, then you give me a big California Cabernet with a lot of tannin and a lot of alcohol, it'll probably be like, ew, I don't like that. I mean, you can drink it anyway. Nobody's gonna die. But it's so nice just to find wine that so easily goes with food. When I was doing a lot of wine writing, I started a newsletter called the Rosengarten Report, and I came up with a rating system for wine. And you know, the famous rating systems are all like 100-point scale. This Chateau Margaux gets a 98. You know, but I didn't care about the numerical rating. I came up with a letter rating that was A, B, C, D, F. Just like school. And if I gave a wine an A, it meant it's likely to go with a lot of different foods. If I gave it a C, like that's an F. If I gave it an F, it's like keep it away from food. And you know, my readers, people who followed me, they found that so valuable. They said, we don't even look at the number anymore. We just want to see if it's an A or a B, then we buy it. I'm David Rosengarten, and I guess what I did really, was I brought a more European way of looking at dining to the American table. And that means it's about wine, it's about food, and it's about relaxation. There's nothing that bugs me more than American foodies and gravies who are snobs. No, it's all about being cool, being relaxed. If you don't mind, I'm gonna get a little more relaxed right now.
Considered one of the best restaurateurs in the last 40 years. He's responsible for creating some of the greatest restaurant concepts in America.
My name is Drew Nieporit. I'm the owner of several restaurants right here at Nobu downtown. Tribeca Grill for 31 years, and Betard, which used to be Montrachet at 239 West Broadway. I grew up in New York City, in the neighborhood known as Peter Cooper Village, Stuyvesant Town. Went to Stuyvesant High School, worked at McDonald's on 23rd Street. But the reason I got in the restaurant business was my father was an attorney with the State Liquor Authority, licensing restaurants. And in the 60s, he would take the family, my brother and I, and my mother, Sybil Trent, who was an actress, to the best restaurants in New York, all kinds of restaurants, French restaurants, German, Italian, delis, you name it, you know, anybody who was serving alcohol. And, you know, it's kind of like when you grow up and you have a piano in the house and you gravitate to music. I was exposed to food, great food, and I knew it was something I was going to do.
Nobu has created an iconic brand all over the world. It's known for fusion cuisine blending traditional Japanese with Peruvian ingredients.
In 1974, when I was 18 years old, I got a job on the MS Vistafjord, which was a first-class cruise liner, 600-passenger cruise liner, and I had never waited on tables. And I show up in the dining room for the first night, 600-seat dining room, 60 waiters, all of whom are not Americans. And I'm wearing a light blue shirt, which was a dead giveaway to, like, I was an amateur. I did not know how to carry a tray. I carried a tray like this. I had 59 waiters making fun of me on that cruise. Cruise went to Russia, all over Scandinavia, Northern Europe. I went back on that ship and their sister ship, the Sagafjord, about 15 times, because it's like learning how to ride a bike. Once you learn how to carry a tray, you don't forget. But I graduated. Nobody wanted to hire me. I tried to get a job at Rockefeller Resorts. I tried to get a job at Western International Hotels. Nobody wanted to hire me. So I went to work at Maxwell's Plum, and they were building at that time Tavern on the Green in Central Park. Maxwell's Plum was a 250-seat restaurant that did 500 covers a night. Very, very busy. It was a really a real proving grounds for me. And then I was offered the opportunity to go to Tavern on the Green, which was a spectacular restaurant in the middle of Central Park. And again, you know, I had to manage about 150 people in the front of the house, and that was a fantastic opportunity. Long and the short of it is, when I jumped out of management, I went to work at a bunch of French restaurants, La Grenouille, Le Périgord, La Réserve, Le Régence. And these were the hottest, the most popular restaurants in New York City at the time, but they were all French and they were all full of crap, to be quite frank with you. And I realized that I wanted to do something different, but I had no money. But everybody who came to the restaurant said, Drew, if you ever decide to do a restaurant, we'll put money in. Okay. I ran the New York Marathon in 1983. I'll show you my picture later. I was convalescing and reading the New York Times, and there was a listing for 1,500 square foot for $1,500 a month. That's $18,000 a year in Lower Manhattan, West Broadway, a hot new neighborhood. I jogged down there. I looked at the space. I can afford that. I signed the lease, and still I had no money to build a restaurant. I cobbled together $50,000 of my own money, $50,000 of a classmate of mine from Cornell's money, and $50,000 from my mother. And together we opened a restaurant called Montrachet in 1985, April, with a young chef by the name of David Boulay, whose food was unbelievable. 7 weeks after we opened, the New York Times gave us 3 stars, which is the equivalent of winning the lottery without being able to collect the cash. That restaurant went for 22 years.
Myriad's excellence in wine service hit a milestone when it became the only restaurant group to earn 3 prestigious grand awards from Wine Spectator magazine.
Well, in the world of New York restaurants, the one thing we did was at Montrachet in 1985. We really took wine seriously. Obviously, the name of the restaurant, it's named after the greatest white wine in the world. And Daniel Jonas, who was, we had worked together at the Plaza Athénée with Daniel Boulud as well in 1984. He came aboard, and we created an unbelievable wine list at Montrachet. And then everybody was a wine director in restaurants, and then everyone had a sommelier in restaurants. And so the trend in New York City and also around the country was that restaurants took a keen interest in wine and always had somebody creating the list and also custodially managing the list. What's interesting is when I was young, I never wanted to repeat the restaurant. It was always about doing something new and different and creative. And that's what I did. I did all different restaurants, different ethnic restaurants. Centrico was a great Mexican restaurant. Layla was a Middle Eastern restaurant. It's like Luca in Boca Raton was an Italian restaurant. But if you really think back, and we're trying always to figure out what's the trend, what do people want to eat, what do they feel like. It's indisputable that the brand, if you have a great brand, that's what's going to ride you through the finish line. And Nobu is this great brand. I mean, they used to say, oh, aren't you spreading yourself thin when we open a Nobu in London, or aren't you spreading yourself thin when we open a Nobu in Phoenix, or whatever. The fact is that a second, third, fourth, 10th Nobu is sometimes better than an anonymous sushi restaurant that opens in those cities. And quite frankly, those are the dishes that also we have today. We haven't innovated that much. We haven't changed anything because those dishes were so cutting edge and have been cutting edge now for 27 years. So what I would say is, we work so hard to figure out brands and try to do new things, and then you read about it and it says, I had a restaurant called My House, Vietnamese, and it says, My House is very good, but it doesn't quite live up to Nobu. So at the end of the day, the lesson that I've learned is really that if you have a great brand, and Nobu is a great brand, that's what you have to stick with.
Nobu Hospitality named one of the luxury's 25 most innovative brands by Robb Report.
I think in order to be a great restaurateur, there's just a couple of simple things. One is don't womanize. 2 is don't drink at your own bar. 3 is really don't take yourself that seriously and treat your staff with respect and dignity that they deserve. And the other thing is, and I think I've proven this, is that you show up for work every day as the same person. You don't come in one day as one person and another day, or get angry, or, you know, if you are consistent in your behavior and the way you are around people, I think they respond to that. So, you know, my success, I can only talk for myself, has been that I've been consistent for over 40 years right now.
When it comes to Southern comfort food, there's one chef that has pioneered her talented staff to cook in your home. Lisa Brooks is the Charlotte-based executive chef and CEO of Heart and Soul Personal Chef Services.
I am Chef Lisa Brooks. I am a personal chef here in Charlotte, North Carolina, specializing in upscale Southern influenced. I've been cooking Southern comfort foods. We would do Sunday dinners, and my grandmother's house was the hub of the family. Every Sunday, we had huge Sunday dinners, all of my cousins, all of my aunts and uncles. There was about 60 people in that little house, and just the feeling of acceptance and of love and of abundance and joy that I experienced at those Sunday dinners, that's really what made me fall in love with Southern comfort food and cooking, which is, to us in the South, showing people you love them. I started the trend of bringing upscale Southern influenced dining experiences into clients' homes with private, elegant multi-course dinner parties. The only struggles that I've experienced in keeping up with this trend is really meeting the demand. Every year, the more that people understand what we do and that we exist as personal chefs, because I do have a team of personal chefs, which is a little unusual in that most personal and private chefs are one-woman shows, one-man shows. But I have a whole team. There's now 10 female chefs on my team, including a staff of servers and administrative people, etc. So we have a continuity of service we're able to provide, and we're able to increasingly meet the demand. So if there's 6 or 7 event requests in a weekend, we can handle that. And so being able to continually grow, train, trust, and grow my team has been the only struggle that I've had, is keeping up with the demand. My passion for food is, I don't know how to describe it. It's what drives me in almost every area of my life. I mean, I travel solely to experience the food and culture. If I meet people or get together with people, I want to cook for them. If I see a clean kitchen, I'm like, ooh, I want to cook in here. It's just, that's the thing it's my peaceful place, it's my happy place. You know, being in a kitchen is where I know I'm my best. And so obviously, you want to be in the place where you know that you shine. And so that's what the kitchen is for me. I have just a wealth of experiences in my past, in my life, my childhood growing up, that are centered around food and feasting. In the South, we feast, and whether it's a family reunion or a cookout or just a Sunday dinner on Sundays with your family, food, Southern food, is all about comfort. It's all about love. It's abundance. There's big portions. There's there's packed with flavor. It's like a warm hug. And so Southern food to me it equals comfort. It equals love. No matter what life throws your way, just remember to slow down and take the time to feast together with your friends, coworkers, family, the ones that you love, because something magical happens when you break bread together. When you share a meal together, you're able to feel a sense of love and belonging, acceptance, and ultimately joy. And that's what we need more of. So slow down and remember to feast. In general, females are very underrepresented in the chef world, particularly the restaurant world. What I've built here in Charlotte with Heart and Soul Personal Chef Service is an entire team of female chefs. I started my company, it was just me, and to meet the constant demand of my customers and the growth, I began to grow a team. So I take interns from culinary school and I train them like little saplings that I water and I prune them and I give them sunshine and I teach them my ways. So it is as if, just as I was in my great-grandmother's kitchen learning from her, that's the experience I'm giving them.
Chef Lisa's 5-course menu tasting has been written up and praised by national magazine editors across America. Her style and approach to food has been sharing her family recipes for decades.
Our 5-course dinner tonight is featuring, first course is a crostini trio. We've got a cornbread crostini topped with collard green and smoked turkey spread. The second is actually a creamed tarragon halibut on top of a fried grit cake. And then the third crostini is a blackberry and sweet onion jam on top of boursin, a homemade boursin with a baguette crostini. So it's almost like a little flight, a little meal in and of itself. Then we move on to our second course, fresh corn chowder. We scrape the corn off the cob, fresh as you can get it, straight from the farmer's market. So we have a nice, light, amazing soup, and then we're pairing that with a $1 million glazed pork belly and fried green tomato BLT. It is to die for. The third course, we move into a seafood course with split king crab that we do in a burst orange brown butter and garlic sauce. And then we've got the surf and turf. It's a petite filet mignon. It's our famous southern marinated filet. We marinate it for 36 hours. It's topped with a what we call a cowboy butter. It's a compound butter, and we've got 2 jumbo prawn on top. We serve that on a bed of a vegetable melange with a balsamic reduction. And then finally, the pièce de résistance is dessert. We make chocolate pot au crèmes topped with chocolate mousse and then garnished with dark chocolate artistic garnishes. We call that dessert Chocoholics Anonymous. With personal chef service, the reason why it's so cool for the customer, for the client, is because it's truly custom and personal. So there's just a huge influx or increase in allergies these days. Nut, soy, corn, dairy, sugar, what have you, gluten for sure. And we're able to make an entire meal, Southern comfort food. Things people I make macaroni and cheese for gluten-free, dairy-free folks. It's like something they haven't had in forever. It's like, oh my God, if you can make this for us, we will, we will love you. It's the stuff they can't get in a restaurant. And I think that's a cool kind of thing we're able to do. At 40 years old, I transitioned from corporate America, a job that I'd held for 16 years at a corporate IT company, and transitioned completely into culinary. Now, I've been cooking my whole life. I just did not know that it was a gift. I didn't know that everybody couldn't cook. I didn't know it was anything special. I thought, everybody's grandmother taught them to cook. It was kind of a hobby for me. But as my corporate job became more stressful, and I started to have panic attacks and back spasms and had migraines, and my body was telling me I needed a change. And my son was graduating high school in 2010, and so I decided he's going to college, I'm going to culinary school. And I started my business in 2010, haven't looked back since. Best decision I've ever made. So for 11 years, I've been doing what I love, cooking privately in people's homes. Manja.
Thank you.
Mabel, my grandmother, Maddie, and my great-grandmother, Tossie, alive. I tell stories. It's like you can read this cookbook. I tell stories throughout about why the food's important to me, or stories, like I said, about the crab in Maryland and Sunday dinners with our family. Everything just about feasting and the joy that you get from feasting, like we're doing tonight, right? People come as strangers, leave as friends. There's something about the spirit of hospitality, which is what the gift that all of these ladies have. And it's just the ability to create an atmosphere where important conversations can be had, where people can feel loved, honored, cared for, have a sense of acceptance and belonging, right? and every human in the room is just respected, and that's the norm and not the exception. That's the atmosphere we try to create every time we have a dinner party. This is the cookbook that is basically all the basics. This is not me showing you how fancy I am. This is showing you how easy it is to cook. And this is showing you how, if you were in the kitchen with my great-grandmother like I was, this is what you would have learned, right? So that's what this book is, and it's super special to me. Every chapter has a story. I just talk about these things, and then most of the recipes you'll see, very few ingredients. We want you to remember the food, of course, but we always want you to remember the way we make you feel at our dinners. And so I want to thank my chefs, Tracy, Keisha, Chantal, the servers. Autumn had to leave, but Autumn was my lead server tonight, Allison and Marlon, and of course my beautiful hostess and sister, Princess Lawrence. Thank you very much.
There has been one woman who set the trend for females cooking it up on the grill. It's the one and only Grill Girl.
Hi, I'm Robin Lindars, and I set the trend for women cooking on the grill. Creator of GrillGirl.com and the recently launched Grill Girl magazine, as well as a cookbook author. I've created a barbecue rub called Sunshine State of Mind that's also a cocktail rimmer, and I am an evangelist of grilling and the grilling lifestyle. Back in 2008, I had just moved in with my boyfriend, had just moved to the Miami area, and I went to use his grill one night, and the gas starter was broken, and I pretty much singed my eyebrows off, and I was like, oh my gosh, that was ridiculous. So I decided to buy him a top-of-the-line grill, and out of practicality, I wanted to get my money's worth, so I started using his grill all the time. And then I fell in love with grilling, and I was like, oh my gosh, why are more women not grilling? Like, what a missed opportunity. So one night on a whim and probably lots of Pinot Grigio, I decided to start GrillGirl.com, and pretty much the rest is history. Since then, I've really been trying to evangelize grilling to other women. And when I started the blog, I also started teaching these women's grilling clinics just to show other women, you know, if I can do it, you can do it too, and just to kind of demystify grilling, if you will. And it also helped me learn a lot about why women weren't grilling and learn certain obstacles, such as, you know, is it the starting process, or you know, why aren't women grilling? And so these classes gave me an opportunity to really better understand those obstacles to grilling for women. I started my blog in 2008, and yes, I've worked with a ton of brands, you know, grill companies and charcoal companies. But yet, still in 2021, you still don't see a woman spokesperson for any grill or charcoal company. You don't see women on advertising. So I still feel like there's so much missed opportunity. I am a girl that loves to host dinner parties, but outside, I love to cook. I love to cook before I embraced grilling and discovered it. So I think I represent a lot of women across the globe that love to cook, love to entertain, love to, you know, enjoy food with friends and family. The main difference is that I love to do it cooking over fire, and that's where I think there's so much opportunity for women behind the grill.
Grill Girl has been an American brand that promotes and educates women grilling, smoking, and even campfire cooking.
Really, how I coined my blog at the beginning was Adventures of a Girl on the Grill. And it's really opened up a ton of opportunities for me, and I've had so much fun, and I'm very thankful for all the opportunities I've had, and really just accidentally stumbled into grilling and fell in love with it. But that's what started getting me press, and then I started getting sponsorships and doing recipe development specifically for the grill, and that's what actually led me to be on the Today Show cooking pizza with Carson Daly, which is funny because I'm lactose intolerant and I don't even eat pizza, but that's another story. And that's how it works, you know. Sometimes someone will find you. I had been doing some recipes for the lamb board. I was a lambassador, and they saw a bunch of my YouTube videos and then invited me on the Today Show. So, you know, if you're out there and you're doing your thing and you're like, oh my gosh, is something ever gonna happen? You never know when that exposure might happen, and it doesn't mean that you're instantly famous overnight and that everything's easy afterwards. You know, you gotta keep the hustle up. That's my advice to everyone is, you know, keep doing it, keep hustling. It's not always easy, but it is worth it if you enjoy it. People weren't doing the basics like, what's the difference between direct and indirect zones on the grill, and how do I start a grill? And that's really what I wanted to focus on, was just to show people how to get started and remove those roadblocks. And I think the biggest thing that might have hopefully helped reframe the narrative about women in grilling was launching the magazine, because I think that was an opportunity to reach people that weren't already online searching for grilling recipes or following me on Instagram, because at that point they probably already loved grilling. But this was a way for me to reach people in the supermarket, to see a woman behind a grill and say, oh, that's interesting. That's Grill Girl. She's a girl. She grills, and have that reframe in people's minds and just start changing the narrative. As a parting thought, I think the one point I'd love to get across is that grilling is the cheapest therapy you can get. There's something that's just such a stress reliever about grilling. Standing behind the fire with the smoke wafting through your hair and hearing the sizzle on the grill is just really relaxing and enjoyable. And I think in times like these where there's a lot of division in the world, I think something we can all agree on is that cooking over fire is a good thing, and we should all be doing more of it. If anything, just for our mental health, I think grilling is the way to go, because we all have to eat, and I can't think of a better way to cook food than over fire, getting the smell of the smoke and the caramelization of whatever you cook over a flame. It all comes together for just an epic eating experience. So I'd say do yourself a favor and buy yourself a $35 grill and a bag of charcoal and get yourself some grill therapy, because it's something I think we can all appreciate right now, that we all need a little bit of stress relief in our life, and that's grilling is stress relief. Now I'm gonna grill some chicken wings using my Sunshine State of Mind Craft Barbecue Rub. So first we need to get our charcoal lit. So I'm going to put charcoal into the chimney starter and light that to get it going. After that ash is over, I'm going to dump it into the grill. With that, I'm going to set up a direct and indirect zone on the grill so that if the wings are cooking too quickly, I can switch them to the indirect side. And we're gonna cook those until they reach an internal temperature of 165 degrees. And once they do that, we'll pull them off and let them rest under foil for 10 minutes and be prepared for grilled chicken wing perfection. And now I'm gonna show everyone how to make a smoked cocktail. Even if you don't own a grill, all you need is a cedar plank, some wood shavings, a glass, and some matches, and you can add smoke flavor to your cocktail. So let's do this.
I'm Scott Summerfield, and I set the trend on food photography, remote style.
Food photography is still life photography genre used to create attractive still life photographs of food. It's a specialization of commercial photography, the products which are used in these advertisements, magazines, packaging, menus, and even cookbooks. One photographer who set the trend for on-location shoots at food venues and restaurants still practicing this method today is world-class food photographer Scott Summerfield.
I remember the first time I started food photography, and that was probably 30 years ago, 35 years ago. It was with a 35mm camera. You know, you had to wait for the film to be developed. I didn't do much of it because I couldn't get the results fast enough. And then digital started to come out. I remember this little tiny Fuji camera that was this size. I started, using that, and I was able to put the cable connected to the computer, and voila, I had pictures that I could send out and send to people. It was like amazing. Everybody was coming up to me saying, "What's that? Oh my God." And I would have to say, it's digital video. You can see it right away. And, that kind of started my creativity going to restaurants and shooting live or shooting set plates. But I would always do it naturally. But my love for photography was way back when I was 16, and I built my own dark room, and that's what I did with my money from babysitting and cutting lawns, and that kind of launched me into finding out more about photography in itself. And from there it was really pretty much everything self-taught. But I started with a large food service company, and we went out and took pictures of the restaurant and their food because I really wanted for people to experience what they were all about, and what better way to really show is in the actual finished dish. I really enjoyed showing people what the restaurant was all about, and it was all about that memory and taking a shot and then showing it out there. And this was before Instagram and any of Facebook was out there, but there were websites, and people were starting to put things out. It's been a lot of fun. I've got a bigger camera and more megabytes, but it's really about the personal touch with the customer and allowing those people to see what that restaurant is really all about through the food photography. I think the future for food photography is more advancements with the phone. I have all this big camera equipment, and I sometimes hesitate taking it out because it's so heavy and I got to carry 3 or 4 bags. But nowadays, the advancement of the photography on a phone and more advancements, I'm thinking maybe, you take the picture and it automatically goes to Instagram. It does all the changes, it does all the apertures, it does all the filters automatically. You speak into the phone, and then you have the information that you can put right on there. It can go right to your website. And that's the way I'm going. I'm going to a smaller camera. I use my phone more than I use the big digital camera, and I get the same results. So I think looking for more apps and the technology becoming even greater out there with the use of the phone, and that's all you're really going to have to carry. So what do I think is needed to take good food shots or photography in general? And I think it really starts with that passion and drive to want to learn, to not be afraid that, you take a picture and it doesn't look good, that you're going to stop. I see that a lot of times people just say, I'm not very good at that. My wife is like that, and now she's gotten better at taking pictures because she started to have the passion for taking her own shots and say, hey, look, I took this, through her eyes, not through my eyes. And you can learn a lot by looking back on that shot that you took. Memories are precious, and to me, that was the whole thing of why, is the memory to look back on those things that you have done, that you can even take down to your relatives, or if you have children, that they can look and see. Without taking shots, you don't have any of that. So it's the real passion and drive, and not ever giving up on learning and learning about the place that you're shooting. You know, if you know a little bit about where you're shooting, you take a different picture too. So that's what I think about photography, and you know, what keeps me going in it is that passion in the industry and the passion about learning more.
Here. Sometimes I get in at 2 or 3 in the morning and don't leave until 5 or 6 in the afternoon, but it's a passion. I love what I do. I love creating new items. I love being on top of my game. I love being a trendsetter, but you have to love what you do. You can't put in 16 to 18 hours a day if you don't love what you do. I'm Umberto Arpea, and I set the trend for fresh pasta in America.
Umberto Arpea, better known as the Ravioli King, has built an empire around servicing what many consider to be the best pasta varieties on a large scale.
I started making pasta as a young child when I spent time in Italy. I was learning from my grandmother when she was making pasta. She would be mixing the flour by hand, cracking the eggs by hand, kneading the pasta by hand, rolling it out by hand, cutting it by hand, and I just fell in love with the process. And I helped her, and I spent a lot of time there learning how to make pasta by hand as a young child. And as I grew up, I always was fascinated with making pasta at home. As a teenager, my parents owned many restaurants, and I was actually making all their fresh pasta. And we started getting a lot of requests for making these specials instead of as a special, as a menu, because people just loved the pasta. So we actually had other restaurateurs asking us, where did we get all this fresh pasta from? So during that time, we were actually trendsetters with raviolis and fresh pasta in our restaurants. And we actually had other restaurateurs ask us for the product. And at that time, we started making stuff out of the back of the kitchen and servicing many well-known established restaurants throughout New York, even Michelin-starred restaurants. So in 1989, when we had our first manufacturing plant, we were actually making the raviolis by hand. It was the only way we were able to get the correct filling into these raviolis. There were no machines at the time that were able to get a soft filling or a chunky filling. Everything had to be dry because everything was made for a cheese ravioli. So what do? To keep everything consistent and actually keep up with the volume, we had to build our own machines. So that's what we did. We went over to Italy. I sat down for over 2 months with top manufacturers of ravioli equipment, and we custom made and designed and R&D'd equipment to allow us to actually use our fillings, and that actually changed the fillings in order to make the machine work. We actually changed the machine to actually make the filling work.
So from that point, Umberto would soon become the largest manufacturer of premium pasta in America. Engineering his own equipment to fit the needs of his creative thinking and to mass produce quality to expand to be delivered to customers everywhere.
So over the years, we won so many awards. But for us, it's not just about awards. It's about trend setting and being ahead of the curve and being better than the next person. And we're always constantly tweaking our recipes, finding new suppliers in order to get consistent product.
The secret to Umberto's pasta mixture goes back a century as his family perfected the perfect blended flour recipe. It's so proprietary that only one family member is allowed to prepare it. A combination of sheer passion and extraordinary flavor creates a pasta experience like no other. Once the product is flash frozen, it's sealed and ready to be delivered.
You got to understand something. Back in those days, there was nowhere you can get a lobster ravioli or a porcini ravioli or a mushroom ravioli. Everything was just basically a cheese or a meat ravioli. So we were the trendsetters during that time. What I would like to be remembered for is actually being a trendsetter. I'm Umberto Arpaia here from Dolce Amore. I set the trend for fresh pasta in America.
The history of chocolate can be traced back to the ancient Mayans, and even earlier than that in South Mexico. The word chocolate may conjure up images of sweet candy bars and luscious truffles, but chocolate of today is little like the chocolate of the past. Lauren Haas has been creating chocolate trends with magical flavors and colors.
I knew as a young child that I wanted to make pastry for a living. I can't really explain when this thought occurred to me, but I grew up cooking and baking for my family, and the combination of doing something with my hands, creating something out of nothing, using craft skills, and also the precision and the fundamental understanding of ingredients and food science was really, really attractive to me. And then you pair that with the ability to make people happy and make an impact on people. So creating something with your hands and then being able to share it with other people, bring joy to people's lives and make an impact is what really drew me to this profession. Being a chocolatier is the best thing in the world. To have an opportunity to work with chocolate every single day, it's an incredibly demanding medium. You have to be very persistent in taking care of the temperature, making sure that the chocolate's not exposed to light and humidity. There's so many small little scientific and also kind of intuitive facets to working with chocolate. It's a challenge every single day. On the other hand, there's so many possibilities with chocolate. There's so many flavor combinations. There's so many forms that chocolate can take. You can build a beautiful sculpture, or you could create a simple chocolate cookie. And all of those are an expression of what your creative vision is, what your philosophy is, and the possibilities are really endless. I can't think of a single other medium in all of food that to me is as exciting, challenging, and as rewarding as working with chocolate.
Chocolate is made from the fruit of cacao trees, which are native to Central and South America. The fruits are called pods, and each pod contains around 40 cacao beans. The beans are then fermented, then they're dried and roasted to create cacao bean. The cacao is then grinded into cocoa nibs. After the mixing process, the blend is further refined to bring the particle size of the added milk and sugar down to the desired fineness. The last ingredient to making the chocolate is love.
Cooking with feelings. It's like, yes, there is a lot of recipe and procedure you need to follow, but you need to put your heart into it. If you just follow a recipe, it's gonna be okay, but if you do it with your soul, that food is gonna be 10 times better.
I don't have one particular food story. For me, it's the story of my professional career and where it's taken me. So being a chef has enabled me to cook for the Queen of England, to make a birthday cake for the Pope, and travel and work with amazingly passionate and talented people. So it's not a specific story that I think about, but really the story of what food has meant in my life and what it has enabled me to do and experience over the past 20 years.
Everything tastes better covered in chocolate. It's one of the seminal creeds of the chocolate lover.
Chocolate is so appealing to everybody since it is the most popular dessert flavor. It's a really good and easy way to get people to try different desserts if you pair chocolate with another flavor that might be kind of unfamiliar to them.
Thinking back on my career and thinking about what I might do differently, really it's about giving myself permission to fail, to try new things, to experiment, and to be okay when things don't always work out, because that's where you learn, that's where you grow, and that's also how you pioneer and how you discover new paths, new ways of thinking, and new creations. If I had an opportunity to speak to the world, I would say do what you love, do what your passion is, what speaks to you, and then share that with other people. Life is really short, so if you're stuck doing something that doesn't inspire you, you need to change it, because the only way you're going to make an impact on people, to bring joy, to change people's lives, is really to yourself be true and then share that with other people.
Chocolate is in 86% of households across the US, so it's basically everywhere. So you have to keep with the trends. You have to understand what the consumer are looking for. For the past 5 years, sugar-free or no added sugar chocolate has been growing tremendously. So it's also important to understand that, hey, maybe it's not about nostalgia, or your product needs to evolve.
I want people to remember me as an inspiring person, as somebody that was kind, and as somebody that empowered other people to grow in their skills and achieve their own goals.